I happen to have investigated quite by chance. First, a few words about our organization. We are based in Brussels. We were created, and I was one of the first members in 1988. We deal with quite a wide range of issues. Freedom of religion or belief is really a personal commitment worldwide, but also women's rights, LGBTI people and human rights, ethnic minorities, and so on. We have newsletters every day dealing with those issues, targeting decision makers in Europe, in the EU bubble, I would say, but also worldwide. That's 10,000 email addresses of all the members of the European Parliament, of members of parliaments of the member states of the EU, but also think tanks, embassies in Brussels, Geneva, New York, etc. Our work is based on investigation, awareness raising, publishing, and advocacy to try to solve problems. As I said, it's quite by chance that I started investigating the issue in South Korea. About a year and a half ago, I got an email from a young lady in South Korea saying, well, we saw that you're investigating the kidnapping and deprogramming issues of people who adhere to a new religious movement in Japan. It was the Unification Church at that time, and we have the same problem in South Korea. I was totally unaware of that issue and the extent of that issue. And so for many years, about 15 years now, I've worked a lot on human rights in North Korea. I happen to come quite regularly to South Korea, and I use two of those opportunities to contact the church and to meet victims of what the sociologists of religion, scholars in religious issues call deprogramming, and that we in the human rights language would say, we would use the terminology forced change of religion. But it doesn't matter, it's the same phenomenon. First, just to recall what is the international legal framework. Article 18 of the ICCPR, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which says everyone shall have the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right shall include freedom to adopt a religion or belief of his choice, and freedom either individually or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in worship, observance, practice, and teaching. And paragraph 2, no one shall be subject to coercion which would impair his freedom to have or to adopt a religion or belief of his choice. We usually think that that problem of coercion, of forced change of religion happens in Muslim majority countries, also in India, Hindu majority country. But it also happens in Christian context, I would say, and in particular in an advanced country, such an advanced country as South Korea. So the Republic of Korea has committed to abide by the ICCPR standards, and therefore the authorities are bound to enforce the prohibition of any form of coercion intended to force followers of religious denominations to recant their faith, which has been the case with thousands of members of the Shincheonji church since 2003. So, first, just to contextualize the issue, you put the animation, I think, in the, I don't know. Yeah, okay, it's like this. Good. So, South Korea, 51.4 million inhabitants. Only 44% of the population have a religion, which means that 56% do not have any. Among those who are believers, so the 44% that have a religion, majority are Protestants, 45%, Buddhists, 35%, Catholic, 18%. And then you have the others, I would say. Altogether, it's 2%, and you have Jehovah's Witnesses, about 150,000, Muslims, 135,000, and Shincheonji, 120,000, maybe more. Well, nobody, of course, can calculate those statistics for any religious movement. But so it is a major movement in the country. Okay. I will first talk about a dramatic case of kidnapping, family kidnapping. Family kidnapping that happened, I would say, recently, about 2 years ago, 4 years ago. It started 4 years ago, in fact. The victim was Ji In-gu. She was the first convert to the church to lose her life during a deconversion program masterminded by the Christian Cult Counseling Center, as they call themselves. At that time, this led to a mass demonstration on the streets of Seoul. 120,000 people protested against the impunity of the perpetrators of coercive deconversion of their members. Over 1,500 cases of kidnapping, confinement, and coercive deconversion were registered between 2003 and 2020. In fact, I must be more accurate, it's those who managed to escape and to keep their faith in such a process. Many others, it's absolutely impossible to know how many were involved, were finally deconverted and never went back to the church. But these are those that really left their testimonies in a written way or a video, in a video form in the church. And I, during my 2 trips last year, I interviewed about 15 of them. So that young woman she was a victim of 2 kidnappings, and the second one was unfortunately led to her death. So the first kidnapping was in 2016. She was then 24 years old. I always insist on the age, and I also identified the social background of those people. They are adults first, and so they have their freedom to choose their beliefs or not to have any. And also they are educated people. So she was on her way home with her parents' car, along with her older sister, when she was kidnapped by her family and taken to a Catholic monastery at that time, where she was kept in confinement during 44 days. Her sister, a teacher in an elementary school, was actively backing their parents' decision and tied Ji In-gu's arms to hers during the trip to prevent any escape attempt. Concerned about the conversion of their daughter to the Shincheonji church, her parents had previously consulted a so-called cult counseling center. And that center had recommended them to kidnap their daughter and to confine them in a place that were safe. That safe means that she could not be located and she could not ask for help. So a place that was rather isolated. Of course, kidnapping is and confinement is illegal in South Korea, according to Article 276, that provides for a fine and a prison term. During her confinement, evangelists came to the place where she was imprisoned by her own family, and they pressured her to sign a statement already signed by her parents, and that statement asserting that she would voluntarily follow their so-called cult exit counseling program, and so to renounce her beliefs in the teachings of the theology of Shincheonji. She signed the statement. Finally, she signed it because she saw that there was no other way to escape and to run out of that situation due to the tight security around her. So it was not her free choice. But that point of signing such a statement is important, and I will come back to it afterwards. So she spent 44 days in confinement, and she was submitted to a forcible deconversion program. When she left the monastery, the Mother Superior of that monastery said to her, "Goodbye and good job you did, and good luck in your life." The evangelist of that cult counseling center then thought that they had been successful with their program, but in fact she had only acted as if she had deconverted. And as soon as she was outside, as she was free, she disappeared to escape the surveillance of her family and also the post-reconversion program to her original religion, which included religious services and classes about the Christian faith. I'm going into the details of this first case to give you the pattern, and then afterwards I will very, very quickly show you some other cases, and then I will conclude and tell you what emerges from those concrete examples. So then the parents realized that she was not deconverted and she was still attending the Shincheonji church. So they decided to kidnap her again and to ask for the assistance of the Christian cult exit counseling center. And that happened at a very crucial time, a time when there are opportunities for families to be together. New Year, for example. So New Year, just before New Year, Gu Ji Ingu was rather afraid, and she told some of her friends that something wrong might happen to her, that her parents might kidnap her again. And that's what happened. At the very end of December, her parents used a family trip as a pretense to kidnap her again. During the confinement and ensuing counseling, cult exit counseling program, she lost her life under still unclear circumstances to the general public at this stage. At that time, a media said, and I quote, "A 27-year-old woman was killed while she was being held captive at a secluded recreational lodge in Hwasun. The parents of the woman were held responsible for the murder. According to the police department of Hwasun, they bound and gagged their daughter, leading to suffocation. The autopsy revealed a high possibility of cardiopulmonary arrest due to hypoxia. The death was ricocheted from a family matter, an argument that is usually used by the police or by the judiciary to do nothing in such cases, to a national issues, with the huge demonstrations that I talked about that happened afterwards in the streets of Seoul, gathering about 120,000 people. The incident was also highlighted by the US Department of State in its annual country report on international religious freedom that was published in June of last year. The father of the victim was indicted, but was still on the run and is still on the run now, according to the last context that I had with that religious community. So, impunity in this case, and impunity in many other cases that we have investigated as well. Now, really very quickly, yeah, another case of a young woman who was an assistant in a pharmacy, and at the age of, so she is from the region of Daegu. Father was a teacher, very authoritarian, really harassing her because of her change of religion. And so at the age of 29, she was kidnapped by her parents and confined for 50 days. She finally could escape because she called for help, made a lot of noise, and some neighbors called the police, and it's through the police that she managed to be freed. And the police, I would say, took good care. I will not go into the details, but the police took good care of her and put her in a shelter for women victims of domestic violence. The case went to court, and the decision was that just a warning to the parents, because there had been no precedent of violence against that young girl. Another case. Yeah, this, oh, yeah, there was another one before. It was also interesting. Yeah, sorry, I'm going too fast, apparently. Yeah, okay. Okay, I will take this one. So this case goes back to 2016. That girl was 23 years old at the time when she was kidnapped. She knows that her parents paid a lot of money to the so-called cult counseling center to organize the training of the parents, how to choose a good location, how to make sure that she will not escape and will have no contact with outsiders and so on, and also for the deprogramming in those confinement conditions. Okay, it's a bit slow, so and I react too quickly. So this case was also interesting. There was a very good relation between that mother and her son. You see a tall, very athletic guy who was a boxer in life, and she was so concerned that her son had joined the church that she also consulted a cult counseling center who gave her the same advice as for other people, and she tried to have her son abducted, but you see, as he was really very athletic, he managed to escape, and then he disappeared for 2 months. And that sort of activity, I would say, that is recommended by cult counseling centers, in fact, contribute to the 1 minute, okay, it will be okay. Contributes to the dislocation of families. So I was told 1 minute left, so I will go to the conclusions and to the pattern that is emerging from these examples that I've just given you. So there is a well-established scenario, as you can see. In most cases, the parents discover that their adult son or daughter, still living under their roof, has changed religion and joined the Shincheonji church. The theology of Shincheonji has been deemed heretical or cult-like by mainline churches. When family members research the Shincheonji church online, they find anti-heretical and anti-cult literature demonizing Shincheonji and other new religious movements. The parents are then filled with anxiety and fear and often look for help. They can easily find cult counseling centers online that are organized by evangelists, missionaries, and pastors. These individuals are working to bring lost sheep back to the church because there is a lot of competition between religions in South Korea. This misinformation fuels panic in the minds of family members, and consequently they begin preparations for a deconversion program. Information sessions are held to train the parents on necessary steps, which include illegal activities such as kidnapping and confinement. And as I said before, these services are not free of charge. During the first phase of the operation, parents are informed that they will have to organize the kidnapping and choose a well-equipped place where no escape is possible. Afterwards, they will have to extort a signature from their son or daughter on a statement declaring that they have willingly asked for the deconversion services of a counseling center and are voluntarily joining a so-called religious deconversion program. The action of the current counseling centers, working within a national network, have a policy of never intervene if the individual has not signed this statement. Those centers adopted this policy after Shincheonji started to sue some of their deconversion activists. They now train their evangelists to organize meetings and consultations with parents so as to keep a distance from any legal liability. Sometimes the deconversion sessions are conducted with former Shincheonji members. In concrete terms, pastors at a higher level are the masterminds behind the scenes of these kidnappings, confinements, and coercive deconversion operations. They never participate directly in these activities, which are illegal and prosecutable under the criminal code. And they leave this responsibility to the families. The agreements that must be signed by the kidnapped people before beginning a deconversion program is also left to family members to obtain. The pastors turn a blind eye to the way this is accomplished, which can include blackmail, threats, psychological and physical pressure, violence, and detention. When the deconversion program can officially start, the work is assigned to lower-ranking activists specifically trained for that purpose. The higher-level masterminds of these operations ensure they cannot be prosecuted. I will stop it here, although I have much more to say. Thank you for your attention.